Welcome, everybody, to the Raad Life, the only talk radio show that takes you along with host and age explorer Rod Gantos on his continuing journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older. The Raad Life is brought to you this week by Your Home for a Lifetime, a company dedicated to empowering you to stay safely, independently, and comfortably in your own home. And now here is your host, Rad Gantos.
Good afternoon, Paul.
Good afternoon. You know, I think people should, they always wonder, why do we start late? Because we're having so much fun talking before the show that it was like, oh, okay, now we got to do the show.
Well, we just, you know, it is the lunch hour on the show. It has been from day one, from 12 to 1, so we really like to delve into it and really just chew on things.
Yeah.
So, but we tend to find our meals pretty satisfactory week in, week out, wouldn't you say?
I think so.
For over 3 years, nobody shot at us or thrown anything at us as we drove by.
So how are we going to take those analogies of lunchtime and eating and tie them into today's show?
You know what, Paul? I don't know. You know, it's like every week is this like inside little challenge of how we basically tease people even further. And they're like, okay, get on with it. Move on. All right. So with that being, our banter being the appetizer today, that we are going to move right into the main course. And the reason why we're using all this food analogy is not because I just had lunch or the fact that, you know, we live in a society where food porn has become a pastime.
It really has.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Right. I mean,
put pictures of your meal on.
Can somebody, while we're talking, Paul, could you dig up and find out, like, when did the term food porn become part of our...
I don't know, but it's one of the staples of Facebook posts. Look at what I'm eating right now.
I mean, hashtag food porn. Hashtag food porn, Raad Life. Okay, but okay, I just cross-branded. Okay, so anyway, because that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
So anyway, before I do introduce our guests, which you'll understand why we're all about the food today. I just want to make sure that everybody knows, if you're listening to us on octalkradio.net, which was the original way that you could tap into the show, you can also see us. I apologize for our
with pictures of food.
With pictures of food. No, we don't. And I didn't bring you lunch, so you know that's Craig's show. But you can also watch us on OC Talk Radio's YouTube channel. You can watch us on OC Talk Radio on Facebook and also on the Raad Life page on Facebook. And then if you are, I don't know, because you have other things supposedly to do in this hour, you know, and you missed the show, we will then share a link and we will hound you until you watch the show. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce my guest.
What is a do?
A do? A deer? A female deer?
Without further ado. I don't want any ado. Go
You
ahead.
don't want any ado? Okay, so no mountain ado for you.
The lady that was here the last time your show gave us a do, what was it, do scent or something?
Duty, whatever scent. It was like a potpourri spray for bathrooms. Okay,
you're in a public
but you know we're about to begin the meal, not the after meal. Okay, right. So let's go back to the appetizing part of the show.
We digress.
Okay, we always do. My guest today is a lady by the name of Mary Bowers that I had the pleasure of meeting accidentally, and I am always open to happy accidents and interacting with people. And I think
so. Would you run into the back of her car? Or something?
No, I didn't. That wasn't that kind of. It was a happy accident.
Happy accident. Okay.
Right, we actually met through a friend at the Center Club, plug for the Center Club here in Orange County, next to the Performing Arts Center.
Great folks.
And General Manager Shaheen there, call out for him. We will have him on one of our shows in the upcoming weeks. I met her, we started talking, and what immediately got my attention is, I'm like, hi, you know, because we are in California. So after you ask what the person drives, you ask them what they do. Right. It's like, what do you do? What do you drive? Where do you live? Okay, I can talk to you, right? But
you're part of my tribe.
Basically, I don't think we even got to the what do you drive. I think it was like, whoa, hi, what do you do? And she goes, Mary, introduce yourself and tell people what do you do.
I'm a world-ranked competitive eater.
What? What? You know, and I was just thinking.
You know, I was looking for that authentic response. That's why I didn't tell him what.
When I was a kid, there used to be, you know, what's my line? Go Google it. And it was a show where somebody would come in and celebrities would try and guess what they do. And I don't know why I was thinking of that this morning. She came in because I did not know what you did. And I'm thinking, I wonder what she does. I wonder where this goes. 'Cause I knew the tagline had something to do with food. You're a professional. So do you go to these eating competitions?
So hold on.
Who's the kid, Joey? Somebody that eats all the hot dogs?
Slow your roll. Okay.
All
right. So Mary is a competitive ranked no less, world-class eater.
And what do you eat?
And you woke up one morning and said, I'm going to be that.
No, I woke up one morning and thought I'm going to paint a garden gnome. I had no garden. I had a small patio at my apartment.
Okay.
And so I thought, what am I going to do with a gnome? That's stupid. But by about noon, I couldn't shake the feeling. So I was on my way to one of those paint your own pottery places. And I thought, okay, well, we'll just box it up, send it to Mom. She'll be happy. And on the way there, I passed a deli. There was a sign that said hot dog eating contest. I went in thinking they'd hand me a flyer saying come watch, and they handed me an entry form for the very last
And
spot.
a bib and said go.
And when was this?
This was 2011, so I've been at this about 7 years.
And
See,
locally?
I know something
where
about
was
this.
Hold on a second.
All right.
Where was this?
It was right here in Orange County.
Ah, okay. A career is born in Orange
Career
County.
is born. Little did I know that Takiro Kobayashi was the headliner for the finals.
Yeah, right. Because
So-
Kobayashi and who's the other kid? Joey somebody?
Joey Chestnut. Joey
Joey
And for those who don't
Chestnut.
know that are listening,
Yes.
They're the world champ hot dog eaters, right?
So Kobayashi was coming out of Major League Eating right around the same time that I went in. So
Major
I am
League
one of
Eating.
the very few remaining eaters who have eaten with both Major League Eating and Kobayashi. I think he kind of set the pace for what the sport would become, but there are several others who have accomplished some pretty great things.
And they
since
both
then.
started at what? Nathan's, the famous Nathan's in Coney
Nathan.
Island?
Yes, yes.
and what was that? Was
Now it's on
that was it
ESPN
at
and everything.
Nathan's the competition that you were in?
No, that one was one of the few before I signed with the league. About 6 months after I did that contest with Kobayashi, got a call from Major League Eating
Major League
asking
Eating.
if I would like to
MLE.
try to qualify for the Nathan's contest. Been there to New York on the 4th of July 6 times since.
Did you ever go?
That's pretty amazing.
The reason I know this, a friend of mine used to own a place called the Derby in Mission Viejo, and he brought out, it was either Kobayashi or Joey, for their hot dog
Yeah,
eating
that
competition.
was the one. That was definitely Kobayashi.
Yeah, right.
So that was 2011. Did you ever get the gnome, by the way?
I did not get the gnome. No, so I have to apologize to my mom.
No gnome
Never
for
made
Mom.
it into the box. I never painted the gnome.
You know, people get distracted by food all the time.
They
Here's
do.
a perfect example.
Now, do you just it's more than hot dogs, there's categories, right? So there are people that only eat chicken wings, or people that only eat hot dogs is the one I think most people know about. It's one on ESPN.
Well, I want to know how an accidental, here's the form you fill out, you sit down, and you start doing this for the first time, not even going out to look for that opportunity, then leads to you basically saying, oh, I'm going to do this enough to where Major League Eating actually calls you. So what happened between that initial hi, oh, I'll fill out this form, to getting that call? What got you? What got to you to where you're like, oh, this is interesting, I want to do this? Like, what triggered for you?
So on the surface, it looks like just an on-the-whim sort of decision, but I had this whole rational assessment going into that first contest of, one, I haven't had dinner yet, so my dinner will
That's
at
really
the
good
very
motivation,
least be
yeah.
free.
Yes.
It takes the same amount of time to sit on the sidelines as it does to be in the contest
Good
and
point.
play the game, which I think applies to a lot of different things in
Yeah,
life.
Right. You can watch or you can participate. It's the same amount of time.
Right.
You make sure that you have a seat at the table, quote unquote.
Right. And then I also, one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever received is that it is better to be 100% wrong than 50% right.
Wow, that's a good
So
one.
I figured out, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I'm going to give 100% and see what happens.
And what were you doing before the gnome and before this? Like, what was your? Did you have a career path?
She's
Did you
waiting for
pursue
inspiration.
Were you waiting for an inspiration?
Sitting at home waiting for inspiration to strike.
So I've been doing some modeling for some local fashion designers. I also studied architecture and had been doing some design work. So
You can work with Rod there.
after-
He does
yeah,
design work. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that's interesting. And then from that, this thing presented itself,
this thing presented
and
itself.
you're like, ooh.
And I would describe it as lightning strikes the lottery winner kind of circumstances, because even when I talk to crowds, when I talk to fans, and I'm asked, how does one become a competitive eater? How does somebody do something like this? I tell them I don't know if I could replicate everything that's happened, even if I had to do it again myself. So
just the sequence of events.
I still go back to my other question. So how many different categories of professional eaters are there? Hot dog. Nathan started this thing. It's now on ESPN. It's got nationwide, worldwide attention, particularly when this kid Kobayashi came over from Japan and stunned everybody, this little skinny kid, and jammed, I don't know how many hot dogs in his mouth in so many minutes. But now it's gone to other foods, right?
Yeah, so there's different categories of foods, but typically if you're a ranked eater, you're competing in several categories. You're probably not just sticking to one type of food. So there's anything that's deep fried and probably not the healthiest for you. We'll have a contest for that. We just did a taco eating contest last week. I cleared out 14 tacos in 8 minutes.
Wow. So what other kinds of foods do they compete on? Give me a handful of them.
So there's chicken wings, ice cream. Donuts. Donuts were kind of a killer. Let's see. Coming up, there's poutine in Canada next weekend.
I don't even know what poutine is.
Poutine is delicious food, and I can see why it's Canadian, because it's like cold weather, post-game kind of food. So it's fries covered with gravy and cheese curds, and it's delicious.
Okay. And restaurants hold these, people hold these around, and there's prizes, and people make money at this, right?
That's right. So typically with a Major League Eating event, it is not usually a restaurant at this point. If it is, it tends to be a large franchise. Just because of the scale of the events, although there are still a few smaller
And how big
restaurants
for those people who are not
but
familiar?
The events right now, you brought up the Nathan's Famous contest on the 4th of July. There's about 40,000 people in the live audience. Typically, broadcast brings in around 7 million people. And they only track the first broadcast of the live
And how much does the
event.
winner
They
get? How much does the
typically
winner
air-
get?
What's the person or something?
They typically air that several times during the day, but the winner for that contest wins $10,000 for 10 minutes of hot dog eating.
Wow. Wow.
How many hot dogs can you eat in 10 minutes? Okay.
Well, and okay, so that's 4th of July. Totally makes sense with the hot dogs. How often are these events, and are they spread out over the course of the year? I mean, is there a circuit, basically?
Yeah, right.
There is a circuit. So the season runs kind of in line with baseball. So we start up in the spring around March and run through early November. There's a few exhibition events kind of December, January, but typically our peak season is the summertime when people are out at food fairs, festivals, ball games.
And what's your best game? What's the one that you
yeah.
excel at? What do you eat more of than anybody else?
What's your food group?
I love sweets. I typically don't eat a lot of sweets outside of contests, so I tend to excel in contest when I get the chance to let loose and eat all the sugar
Donuts,
I want.
ice cream, that kind of stuff.
Donuts, ice cream sandwiches, cake.
And how many would you eat in a? These are all like a 10-minute session, or they vary in the time?
Most contests are 10 minutes with the donuts and with the ice cream sandwiches. Those are both short form contests. So 15 ice cream sandwiches in 6 minutes.
Wow.
Those,
My God.
Wow.
those,
And you have to not throw it up, too. I mean, that's the
and
key.
they were substantially sized ice cream sandwiches. So if you think about a quarter-pounder cheeseburger, that was probably about the size of each.
So what is the
ice cream
what
sandwich.
is the most challenging?
What's the hardest one to compete in?
Well, or most challenging thing about what you do?
Oh, okay.
I would say the most challenging thing is almost doubling as a food therapist for other people's food issues, because when you do something unique that nobody else is doing and you excel and you have a specialty in a category, people assume you know everything about everything that's related to it. So I hear the full spectrum of different food obsessions and extreme diets, and
Funny how people are.
It's pretty amazing.
Can I ask you
So-
another question?
They'll tell you anything.
They
Right?
will tell you.
Can I ask you another
anything.
question? Because this one I've heard a lot of. When I did meet, it was Kobayashi, the one I met at the Derby hot dog eating contest, and they had, I don't know, 500 people show up. It was a big deal, and they had to pay him actually to come in. They had cover his expenses or something. He wouldn't just show up. And Kobayashi's pretty small. you assume these would all be sumo wrestler types that could have giant stomachs that could eat more than I could, but that's not the key to this, as I understand.
Well, and I don't want to give it away yet because I want to find out, because you said you start paralleling baseball. And so, as is the case in sports, there's training for sports. Yeah. And I was looking at your information, and you said this is just the same, that you actually have to prepare for it, right?
Right.
So why don't you talk about that a little bit, Mary?
So it's no different than any other sport. You don't just wake up one day and decide I'm going to go and eat 74 hot dogs.
Although you did.
How did you do, by the way, on that first
That
one?
is, so the first contest I came in dead last. I ate, I think, 8 hot dogs in 12 minutes, which is terrible.
But, coming in dead last and still thinking, lightning strikes, that's pretty cool.
But I was also the only female on the stage. So I think that was also part of what has kept me going in the sport, because I did have some people pull me aside after that contest and make comments about, they wanted their daughters to watch somebody who was willing to go up and be different.
And not order salad all the time.
Right. Yeah.
And how diverse is the circuit or the league relevant to men and women?
It's still male dominated, although those numbers are starting to shift. We are starting to see some more women come in, but as of right now, I would say it's maybe 75% men, 25% women.
Would you associate that with some kind of reasoning? Is there other factors?
Women being more Weight Watcher, it's not ladylike or something. Yeah.
I think
guys are just slobs and delete it.
No,
right.
I
Guys will eat
think
anything,
that the incentives and the rewards are very different, and it's not just in terms of the sport, but attitudes towards food in general. So we all know the women who eat before they go on a date and then order a side salad so it looks like they never eat anything.
Right.
And that's a normal enough thing that we probably know multiple women who do this. So it's almost encouraged to not eat. I think just in terms of social conditioning.
And that was what I was trying to allude to without being too direct. Is there is an aspect of that that's socially saying, oh, women need to be more conscious about this, men not maybe as critically looked at because of what they're shoveling into their mouths, and so that may factor. But I'm glad to hear that is balancing out. So what do you do to train?
So it's the same as other sports where you break it down into parts and pieces. So sometimes you'll focus on speed, sometimes it's conditioning, endurance, capacity is another aspect of what we work on.
How do you not throw up when you jam that much? I don't care what you look like. If you jam that much food in your mouth that quickly, I would think the tendency would be to throw up.
No, your body gets used to it, and I think 99% of any sport is mental. So if you tell yourself you're going to get sick and throw up, you probably will. But if you're of the mindset of, you know what, no matter what happens, I'm going to push through, I'm going to keep going. I want to see if I can do better than the last time. I want to see if I can do better than the guy next to me. You'd be surprised what you can accomplish.
What was the last competition that you partake in?
I did a contest last Thursday in Santa Monica. It was a taco eating contest.
Okay, and what did you do to train for that, or to prepare for that, I should say?
So on that one, tacos are a little challenging to prepare for because the spice palette is different for every taco. I mean, there's a wide range of size and quality and just flavor for tacos.
Are you told in advance what you're going to basically be?
So we knew that we would be eating carnitas tacos with some salsa, cilantro, a little bit of onion on a corn tortilla. But even that, I mean, there's just so many different variations of how to do that. So I didn't get to taste one of the contest tacos until the morning of the contest. So that one's a little bit harder to prepare for under those circumstances, but every other competitor had the same conditions.
So that everybody had walked into it with the same thing. What is one that's easier to prepare for?
Hot dogs and chicken wings tend to be easier, just because there's just a more consistent product in terms of
they're all the same.
How they're prepared. They're all the same.
So you've got a hot dog or chicken wing competition coming up. how much in advance do you start preparing for it?
So I'll generally start preparing. I mean, you don't really ever stop your conditioning, but
Yeah.
I'll
like an
really
athlete.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'll really start focusing and actively preparing starting in January for the contest.
So
in
do you
July.
literally go home and time?
starting in January for a contest in July.
Right.
Do you literally start timing yourself, and how often do you jam hot dogs and see how many you can
Are there
swallow?
are there competitive food gyms? I mean,
No, so like I was saying, it's definitely not what people think it is. There is something called the belt of fat theory,
okay.
and that is that fat cells and muscle are different types of cells. So if you have excess fat around your midsection, your stomach is actually constricted.
Yeah.
So you can't expand as much to hold the food that you need to, which is why most competitive eaters are pretty lean. And I would say that assuming that they're large,
They're
is
maximizing
probably,
their capacity.
yeah, expecting to see some huge person
makes
walk
perfect sense.
out
So I'm saying,
is
yeah,
one
it's
of the
the opposite.
biggest
You think if people are going to
misconceptions.
eat that much, they must be huge, and they're not. You're saying
No.
because the fat around, if you really are huge, that fat is restricting your stomach
And
from
are you
expanding.
Right,
doing
so-
this as individual training? Is this a where you have a training partner, somebody to spot you? I mean, I don't know. So how
So
variety of all
yeah.
of that?
So it's a combination of all of it. Obviously, every person has to take the initiative on themselves to get better at the game. But we all talk to each other outside of the contests and kind of give each other tips and pointers.
Do you try and psych each other
So-
out? And
Not until just before the contest. Overall, I would say competitive eaters are pretty supportive bunch.
you're not putting a little spice in the other guy's hot dog to make him choke? or
No,
something?
no, because to be the best, you have to compete with the best.
Okay,
So by elevating
Yeah.
the standards for the game
gosh.
for your
You
co-competitors,
guys are talking about
it
this like
pushes
this is
all
really
of us to be
baseball or
better.
something here.
Yeah,
This is-
it's competitive sport. It's a competitive
It
sport.
is.
Yeah.
Can I just get a rough idea of what you don't have to tell me what you make, but what does somebody on the circuit make? What kind of life can you live? Is this your full-time life that you live off
So
of?
as of right now, this is my full-time life, which is kind of a
Crazy.
crazy, weird place to be. But but the range of what people earn is pretty large.
Give
Because
me just some ballpark ideas. I mean,
it can-
I'm not talking about the top two, but just
Yeah,
as
it
an
can
average
range-
competitor, if I want to go into this, what could I expect to make if
I
I'm
think
good?
the average competitor who's like middle of the rankings is probably pulling in around $30,000 to $40,000 a year.
And if you're top of the tier, what do you make?
Top of the tier is pretty limitless in terms of what the earnings can be.
Well, because you get
but
endorsements,
yeah,
you got appearances, you
I
got
mean, can you make $1
cross-marketing.
million being a hot dog eater?
Yes. Yeah.
You can make $1 million.
Yeah, I
Eating
wouldn't
hot
say
dogs.
just eating hot dogs. I mean, there's a lot of other
You gotta
work that goes into it. It's just like Raad was saying, it's the endorsements, it's the product
Yeah.
development, it's the social media placements. It's a whole bunch of
So
other
the hot dog
stuff
company
that
hires you
goes
to endorse
with
their
it.
hot
So,
dogs then or something?
it's not just the hot dogs. I mean, there's
The ice
there's
cream, the
a wide
wings.
wide range.
Oh yeah, I
of
mean,
things.
think about all the budgets that go into marketing behind these products. I mean, if you're not, if you you eat your feelings,
my
you
God.
eat when you're happy, you eat when you're sad. Society tells you to basically just shovel stuff in there because it'll make you feel good, regardless of what your emotional condition
Right.
is, right? And you're basically being told that all the time in different manners. So if somebody is basically quote unquote think about the old story about the guy from Subway, right?
yeah.
I don't know if that's the best example.
Well,
but
but my
Given
point
how
is
it
that-
turned
is
out,
there's
yeah, no,
always
but-
there tends to be if you
But in the
humanize the story,
Yeah.
there's a component now that basically takes on more. Oh, I can relate. Right?
In the beginning, Jared
Right.
was a very
And that's
sympathetic
where-
figure, and it was much later we found out he was a creep.
Well, I
but,
don't. The only reason I brought it up is because even in that there's controversy.
yeah,
No.
but I would say that as far as
They
the
didn't want to be.
marketing and the branding goes, there's
Just like sports figures.
there's no better, there's no other product that's marketed
All right,
as well.
So
as,
I got to ask you
as the
this:
hot-
so, do you
hot
have
dog.
fans? Do you have people who follow you? People who want to date you just so they could date like a famous
Yeah.
athlete?
What is
here?
what is the
No.
what is the life not on the
I
circuit?
mean, are
for
they? Do you have stalkers? Do you have fans? Do you have
have-
people writing you love letters and saying how much they admire
you know, there's
you?
a side of
and-
you that's coming out. I'm really not
Well,
comfortable
yeah,
with.
because if you're an athlete, if you're a celebrity, then I would think you would attract fans, and some of those fans can be a little deranged.
You know what, though? One of my co-competitors made the comment that creeps have money, too. So as long as they're willing to buy your stuff, I mean, and they're not showing up at your house, the money spends the same.
So have you ever gotten fan mail, or do you have people come up to follow you from event to event?
Well, and maybe well, after you answer that, maybe we can switch into the eat and be merry and that whole digital.
Right. So tell us about your fans. Do you have fans? Do they follow you? Do they write you? Tell us some funny or sad or creepy stories.
I do have fans, and they run the whole spectrum. Thankfully, most of them are pretty cool. There's only been a couple of creepers in the bunch, and I'm glad that they don't pop up very often. So I've been really, really fortunate. Everybody's been really encouraging, and most of my fans are younger. I get a lot of children and young parents who follow me around. So.
And what do they do? Do they show up at your event and hold up a sign saying "Go Mary," or do they just? They
do. Yeah, they do. And sometimes I'll even get email in from fans just saying, "I saw you in this event. I really admired what you did. Keep doing what you do." So. It's always encouraging.
They admire that you ate 27 tacos.
Well, the technique. I mean, there was skill involved. Come on, Paul.
There is skill. When you watch that Kobayashi kid, the way he jams them in and what he does is a real science to how he paces himself and jams
that
them
Kobayashi kid, as much as he accomplished in the sport, and you always want to elevate people who are kind of the pace setters and the game changers. There are, I would say, half a dozen people at least now who would be able to cleanly beat his best record.
Place.
Oh,
Clean
see, did you
plate.
pick up on that competitive streak right there?
Yeah,
that's good. So,
because he really, just so people know, again, I don't only because I had this friend and we put on some competitions at the Derby that I have to learn about this and how big it is and how crazy it is. Kobayashi, when he came into the sport, I want to say maybe he didn't double it, but he ate substantially more hot dogs than anybody had ever eaten.
So what is the current situation in the sport? Who are the leaders in the sport?
And what's the record? Give us some numbers.
Because you're like friggin', like nostalgia over there, right?
I know.
All you want to do is pull out the old scrapbooks.
He changed the sport when he came into it.
Okay, we're moving on.
Yeah, so Joey Jaws Chestnut has dominated the sport for over the last decade. And I mean, he works harder than anybody else. He is the most focused person that I have met in my entire life.
What's the average age of somebody in the circuit? Because I can't imagine if it's similar to sports, there must be sort of a window in which you are competitive.
There aren't 60-year-old guys.
Surprisingly, no. So Rich Lefevre, I believe, is in his 60s.
What?
I would say closer to 70. I don't know his age off the top of my head.
So in fact, unlike other sports. You could actually have a longer career.
Keep going.
Hope for me, I could join. I always wanted to be an athlete. I could turn out to be a professional eating athlete.
But I am, and you do have to be at least 18 to sign those waivers and compete.
Well, yeah.
But some of the younger people coming in are really, really on top of the game right out of the gate.
What's the youngest that you know that's involved?
Youngest I know right now is 19 years old.
And what is
from 19 years old to 60 plus.
And give me some idea what the records are. How many hot dogs are we eating these days to be in the top tier? What's a typical winner in 10 minutes consume?
So
I know it varies from contest, but roughly.
It varies from contest to contest, but you're looking at 74 or 75. I think under the right weather conditions, you'd be looking at 80. Unfortunately, it's hot and humid in New York on the 4th of July, and I think that does have an effect.
So 75, 80 is hard to get to, but weather conditions play a role too.
In 10 minutes.
80 is doable. I think if you talk to Joey Chestnut, he would say 80 is doable, but again, that's like the perfect hot dogs. That's the perfect weather conditions.
So what is the perfect weather conditions for eating that many hot dogs?
Probably a little cold.
A lot like it is in Southern California.
Oh, good training ground.
It's probably not the greatest training grounds because it's always like 70 degrees. It's not too humid. It's not too hot. It's not too cold.
You don't get a range.
So do you have an issue like in that kind of temperature, for example, if it was ice cream training?
So no, because ice cream's pretty dialed in as far as how frozen something is before they bring it to the table.
I did not wake up this morning thinking I was going to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that.
But, the extreme heat, the extreme cold can be really challenging because if you're eating at speed, your body heats up anyways, just because it's physical exertion and the adrenaline kicks in. And
So that's where the temperature plays a role. It's your physical reaction to the weather conditions.
It can change the properties of the food too. So humidity can change the the consistency,
dryness,
and
whatever.
the dryness.
It makes it.
Extreme cold can be really hard too. That contest in Canada that I just mentioned, the first time that I did that, I ran into some trouble because it was so cold outside that my hands had no grip. I mean, they were not moving as quickly as they normally do because it was so cold.
So how do you get 75 hot dogs in and you have to swallow them too?
I haven't done 75.
What's the most you've done?
But 12 with the bun.
12? Oh,
in
you're
10 minutes, so
on the low end.
How
of
many
hot
have you done?
Yeah.
I could eat 60. Right now, I could eat 60 hot dogs.
So
put them out.
I mean, that's an excess of.
But I've watched this content.
Like
I mean, they're jamming and they do one side and they jam the other side.
So Paul touched on it a little bit, right? So what do you do? I mean, obviously, and you even touched on it. Like, there's another side to this. Being involved in this, people reach out to you. You've tried to basically establish a presence, a communication. You have your company, the Eat Be Merry. Which, go ahead and give the address, Mary.
It's eatbemary.com.
EATBEMARY.
Yes.
.com. Okay, and tell us about that. What is that, and how did it come about?
So, as I mentioned, I had been doing some design work. I had been doing some modeling, and then when the competitive eating came into the equation, I started thinking, well, I need to figure out a way to connect with fans and keep them engaged. What do I know? Who do I know? And so I figured that I'd start applying the fashion design and the architectural design to the competitive eating environment. So I started dressing like the food for every contest I compete in.
You dress like the food, like a hot dog or an ice cream?
I have not been a hot dog. I have been a hot dog stand. But I have not been a hot dog yet.
Is this normal to themize your costumes for people?
Every single contest. I'm the only one that currently.
I've never seen anybody.
So hold on. So other people don't necessarily do it.
No.
You're doing it. So again, it elevated you in a different spotlight.
Right.
When you're on the stage. Perfect. Smart.
Yeah. So I think because of that, that's why my fans tend to skew younger.
Yeah.
There's almost this Disneyland princess effect. The fashion design opens up a conversation, and I think makes me more approachable to, children who, as amazing and incredible as Joey is. I mean, he's also over 6 feet tall, and I think if you were a 3 or 4 year old child, could be a little intimidating. So I wouldn't say off-putting. He's just intimidating.
And your costume. I mean, Paul, are you checking out the website? Is that what you're doing? Okay. For anybody who is in front of the computer, go check it out. Your stuff is actually very nice. I mean, it's really well done, and it does. I can see where you would say it has sort of a Disney-esque.
I'm not pulling up. What is it? What's the website again?
EatBeMerry.com.
Oh, Mary,
and you can
M-A-R-Y.
also follow me on social media at EatBeMerry.
So Facebook, Instagram. So they're good. They're really nice costumes. I mean, I was like impressed. I was like, because I just did an OC Fashion Week, and I'm thinking, this is actually pretty cool. There's some nice skill in the actual costuming. This is, and then we're coming up on Halloween, and I'm thinking, these are really, really good. So do you have any of your fans that are basically like, where can I get this from?
Yeah.
Does it open another door kind of for custom work?
So it has opened the door for custom work. So that's been a really great opportunity. I mean, Major League Eating has opened so many opportunities and so many doors for me in ways that are not necessarily
let me follow up on
directly connected.
I'm trying to look at your hand. I don't see a wedding ring on it, so I'm assuming that you're single. And how has this affected your dating life, social life? Are you so busy I can't date? Are you dating within the community because that's who you're hanging out with? Or do you have a partner outside?
Do you bring your work home with you?
Yeah, and your partner says, "Hey, wow, this is great."
I do bring work home with me, so that can be interesting. But I've found that it has affected my dating life, but in not the way that I would like it to go. It's more like guys, hear it and they think it's cool. Oh, you do these contests. That's amazing. That's awesome. And then I get invited to go hiking. I get invited to go biking. I get invited to go like bowling, maybe coffee if I'm lucky. Not dinner.
So there's an
Not dinner.
Because
they think you're going to eat the.
What, do you think there's an
gonna
intimidation factor?
I think
you're going to run the bill up.
They think I'm going to run up the bill. Yeah.
You're going to burn through my weekly allotment here. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm taking her to dinner.
I mean, you know,
That's crazy,
guys
yeah.
pride themselves on certain things. One of them is basically eating heartily, and I think, you know, if somebody's sitting across the table from you and you are not comfortable in your own eating habits, would you feel intimidated because the person across the table is going to eat you literally under the table?
Well, I think like the gold standard for dinner too is the steak and lobster dinner.
Yeah.
Right.
And the world record in lobsters, I think, is like 54 million
Oh my
lobsters
goodness!
in 12 minutes.
You break the bank on
Very
that one.
appropriate statistics in October in California, since it is lobster season.
Yeah, set by
50
Sonia Thomas. So
50
female.
lobsters.
What?
Think
Who
of like
said the lobster?
54. And if you think about, you know, a lobster dinner goes for what, $50 a piece?
Yeah. That's a
Extrapolate
lot.
that out.
Of,
So I
That's a
do
very
not
affluent
get-
competition.
Lot of
I
dough.
don't get invited to dinner.
That's funny. So go back to
And what do you-
some of the other stuff that's from your website and from interacting with people that you have felt has been fulfilling, like
Fulfilling
yes,
again.
in an unexpected way. Let me finish it, okay? Fulfilling in an unexpected way, like where you maybe interacted with somebody and you felt that, you know, they were dealing with something, a crisis, and you were able to be there. Was that aspect of it also part of what the experience has been for you?
Yeah, and I think that's the one thing that I just was not ever prepared for. And even though I've been doing this for several years now, whenever a fan approaches with a really heartfelt story, it's not something that I feel I'll ever adequately be prepared to
Deal with?
address, because, you know, life is just so different for everybody. And I think the thing that they're really looking for is just a human connection that's genuine and real. And so I take it as a huge compliment that people have been so willing to share their lives. But I think one of the best examples was probably one of my worst moments in the sport. So I went into a competition. I was projected to win. I didn't win. I lost. I lost badly. So I went back to my hotel feeling sorry for myself. I was sitting at the hotel bar, and there was a woman who walked in with her husband. She started jumping up and down, almost crying, and she's screaming, "You're her, you're her, you're her." And I was thinking, I'm not the her you're thinking of, I'm pretty sure. And she pulled up her phone, she pulled up a YouTube video of my very first contest, started playing it for her husband, and she said, "This is her." And I said, "Oh, yeah, I guess I am her." And she looked at me and she said, "This is what I watched. You were terrible in that contest." And she's pointing at the video and she's like, "You were terrible. You were awful. You came in last." I'm like, "Lady, this is really not the
right
conversation I
Yeah,
need
thanks.
right at this moment." Right. And she said, "This is what I watch. This is my thing. I always watch this whenever I feel like I can't keep going."
Oh.
Because she said, "You looked like you were having an amazing time and you did not give up. You didn't quit." So I think that was probably one of the most humbling moments.
As the website says,
Well, it got you out of your mind, right?
Because it got me out of my head, but I
Right.
think it also really allowed me to understand that, yeah, it's really great to do well, and it's wonderful to have fans to be excited when you do well. But it's also very human to have moments when you don't do well. And there's always somebody, no matter how successful you are, or if you're just having a really, really hard time, there's always somebody who can relate to that experience.
as the website says, it just gets butter. Life is what you bake of it.
And that's the website. You finally found the website.
Found the website.
And give
It's
people
very,
give people
very clever, very cute. You really should check it out. It's very cute sayings, stuff.
Give people the domain again.
It is eat, E-A-T-B-B-E, Mary, eatbemary.com, M-A-R-Y, eatbemary.com. And she's got on here events she's coming up. She's got some very clever pictures of her.
Are those costumes not like top-notch.
Really cute, well done
Seriously,
website.
right? I mean, Disney, you
Thank
should
you.
check this thing out. Okay, place orders.
Recipes, things you like, other sorts of inspirational things.
No, because
I
you
think there should be a food princess.
there should be a
Yeah.
food
There should
princess.
be a
Isn't it
food
time?
princess.
Isn't it
It's
time?
time
where
for
body
a-
image wasn't like one way.
There is.
Well, and I'll tell you why I'm harping on this as far as the quality of something like this, because to me, your ingrained need or DNA of creatively expressing comes out through that. When I look at that
Right.
website, I look at that
Very
playful,
creative,
playful
yeah.
language. You know, Paul said creative. You know, creative, very creative website. The outfits, the way you're positioning yourself in a competitive circuit. Okay, that DNA component that is creative expression comes through.
It's very fun,
Thank
very
you.
clever.
And
Thank
it
you.
really dials in directly to the
Yeah.
brand. You are your brand, and this is basically, and you're having fun doing it because it's feeding that side of you.
It's a little bit silly.
right?
You poke fun a little
Thank
bit
you.
at it and everything here. Yeah,
But
I
it's
mean,
not hokey. Like I looked at
No.
that, and I was like, my first impression was, and then I started looking more and more, and it actually there's substance to it. I mean, I hate to use the pun, but there's steak and not
the
just
bun.
sizzle.
The bun.
Okay.
Don't use the pun. The bun.
But so what are you excited about, Mary? Where's this? I mean, we talked about the fact that how long could you possibly do this, and you just said you could probably do this endlessly, kind of, right? You may not want to, whatever. But what are you excited about? Because you've been doing it since 2011.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are, almost a decade. So what are you excited about?
So
Looking forward.
I think in those fan conversations and interactions, I have realized that I don't have the option to be ignorant about food. I don't have the option to be ignorant about the different range of, or the full range
So you're
of
talking about like
opinions
nutritional, all the other aspects of it too?
So
or-
it's not just nutrition or body image, health and fitness, like most people associate food with. It's also food production. It's where food is sourced. It's how we make recipes. How do
She
we
has
create
recipes
stuff?
on
Where
here.
do we go grocery shopping? What's the experience when we go grocery shopping? There's just such a big range. What is global trade policy on food?
We're talking global
mean,
trade
so-
policy today
so
with the World Competition Eater here.
It's funny because I think.
Well, if you want an authority on the subject,
Yeah.
I mean,
She's
you're going
been
to
around the world
You're going to get the thin person who only eats a salad.
Do you
bunch
go
of-
around the world, or is this just in this country?
Yeah, it's a worldwide sport. So I just got back from Germany about a month and a half ago. It's definitely a worldwide sport. I think different cultures perceive it in different ways.
How does your
but-
culture? I don't know what your ethnic heritage is. How did your family perceive this?
So I was adopted at 5 months old. So my family is from Colorado initially. I don't think they understood what it was about, but after they were able to see a contest in person, I think they understood every bit of it. My mom, I was able to surprise her at the World Burrito Eating Championships. I did not
This one's
tell
for you,
her-
Mom.
I didn't tell her I was going to be there. And my family, because we love her so much, my aunt and my cousins lied to her to get her to the stadium, saying she had won tickets or something
The tricker to
to
come
this
out.
big event. So she didn't know that I was there until she saw my face on the jumbotron and heard the announcer. And it was great because the team they gave her a swag bag. They sent the team manager out to greet her, thank her. We're so happy you won our contest. So everybody was in on it. Fireworks. But how many people get to do that for their parents?
Yeah,
with,
absolutely.
Big stadium.
So are they
event with
supportive, or
fireworks.
do they think this is just a crazy thing you're doing and someday you'll get a real job here?
So my dad passed a few years ago, but
sorry.
my mom thinks that it's great. I mean, it took her a little while to warm up with it because I think any parent,
Well, it's
regardless
out of the
of
ordinary.
Pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
it's out of the ordinary, but I think any parent, regardless of the track that their kid is on or what career they select, when they're first getting started in life, I think there's got to be some nerves.
Oh yeah.
So
concerns, worries, you're not going to
Yeah.
do it, and then somebody's actually, oh my God, it was bad enough you were basically going after architecture. I mean, you're just pursuing a path less traveled, and now you've abandoned that solid foundation of a business future, and you're now gone into competitive eating. I mean, it's like, can you build, excuse the pun, a career on competitive eating? Obviously, you have. So. Again, what is it that you're looking forward to? Like, I mean, do you see yourself doing this in the same way? Obviously, it has opened up other doors.
You're
You
going to
don't
hold
know
your
what's
own
gonna happen.
competition. You're going to do other sorts. You want to get into other food areas.
Or
I
even,
don't
I
know.
mean, when you were talking about, like sourcing of food, recipes, all this stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, I
so
can
I'd
think
really like to get into food advocacy and policy development, just because it's something that affects
phenomenal.
It affects everything that we do in the sport.
Phenomenal.
And not just me, but it affects everybody. It affects my fans. It affects their ability to have healthy lives for themselves. And the more that I travel, and the more that I hear these stories, and the more people I meet, and the more foods I get to try, the more it just kind of speaks to kind of the core of who I am. That it's something that I wish more people would get engaged with.
I mean, and we had Bill Bracken here, who was a chef at the Peninsula Hotel in Los Angeles, and ended up losing his job after years of being involved with a lot of celebrity and all of that stuff. And basically now, and Bill, congratulations on the new kitchen location. But he basically has Bracken's Kitchen, which is a homeless food nutrition support, and his drive was he was working at a couple, or not working, but volunteering at a couple places when he was unemployed, and he realized that the quality and nutrition of the food that was being served was substandard to what could be done, and so he connected all the dots in his own background and career and connections, and basically
good
now
food
has
that tastes good for poor people.
Exactly.
Right.
And so I commend you on that. I mean, I think it's huge, especially in society which basically seems to promote everything that's easy and convenient, with the understanding that if it's healthy, then it may be hard to prepare and all this stuff. So advocacy is awesome. And I mean, we all put stuff in our mouths every day. So, I mean, I don't know how much more directly do you positively or negatively impact somebody than what they digest.
How many are there doing what you do? Hundreds, dozens? I mean,
like the circuit. How big is the circuit?
How many food eaters are there in the pro circuit?
I would say
they'll walk among us, and we have no idea.
I would say there's probably 80 to 100 people who are consistently.
And are they all Americans
competing.
or all over the world?
No. So right now, one of the top ranked eaters is Gideon Oji. He's based out of Nigeria.
Nigeria.
So it is a worldwide sport. Yeah.
How do you get into?
So how does the United States compete? Like how big a presence do we have?
Are we kicking the rest of the world? Come on.
So yeah, it's definitely I think it's the biggest event in all of the sport is the 4th of July. So it's definitely known as an American thing. But there's different forms around the world too. I think in Japan it takes more of the game show type of format. In Europe, it seems to be more focused on the restaurants and the food challenges. So it's really interesting to see how different cultures have taken
anything you won't eat. Is there a spider eating contest or a worm eating contest or
what has there been anything that you've walked away from?
So I'm not eating that.
Okay, there was a brain taco eating contest.
See, I'm getting that.
I should have known going in. The sponsor was Andrew Zimmern from Bizarre Foods. So I should have known going in what I was in for.
Yeah.
But, I try not to have any judgment, preconceived notions. And so
No food judgment.
No, I mean, you don't know until you try it, right?
Yeah.
So I figured, okay, well, this looks fun. We'll try this. And I did not even have the first taco up next to my face. It wasn't even in my mouth yet. And I started getting that nauseous, gagging reaction. But I still got some down. So.
And how was it taste-wise?
It was terrible. It was terrible.
So if anybody offers you a brain taco, walk away.
But it was a really great event. It was
because I'll bet.
Really, really
what was that
fun
thing, that show where they had Fear Factor or something, where they would make people eat things that they wouldn't normally, like I don't know, a cockroach or a spider or a worm or something. I would think there must be some oddball ones.
I mean, and, Anthony Bourdain, all these things. That there are places where some of these things are
delicacies,
are really good protein sources.
Yeah, so we haven't had anything like that really in Major League Eating that I'm aware of.
We should have a cockroach eating contest or something like that.
Because I think the quality control around the food itself is really important. And then we also, I think the league itself, and I'm sure the chairman would have his own take on it. I think they want to make sure that it really is respected as a sport and not as this kind of sideshow.
Where's the league based out of?
So based out of New York.
Okay.
and they're just a really great organizing body. They set all the rules and regulations, and they make sure that we're safe too. So every contest, we have EMTs present, ready to respond in case anybody.
How long
gets into
how
any
long
trouble.
has the league been around?
You know what? I'm not quite sure off the top of
Roughly.
my head, but I would say as a sport, competitive eating's less than 20 years old.
Oh,
So
wow, so
it's
it's
still
relatively
very
new.
much in its infancy.
And I hadn't thought about it, but there are accidents. People must choke or other sorts of things.
Typically with the professionals, choking's not a regular thing, but it is always a possibility.
So,
And so-
we're almost
Yeah,
out of
we're
time.
out-
So,
right there.
so I'm going to ask the foodie fashionista here, which is one of the labels that she has on. I really encourage everybody.
The foodie fastinista.
Fastinista?
Because
Okay.
she eats fastinista.
Is
yes.
that how it's spelled?
That's just
Okay.
my. She can
how
add that
how
to her
is it?
website.
What is the proper title?
Oh, and so I have this whole introduction that the MCs have given me. So, you know, she's the Chanel La Bechamel, the Louis Vuitton of croutons, Hermes of canapes, you know, and
I
on
like
and on
it,
and on.
I like
So
it.
We should have introduced her like that in the
Yeah.
whole show.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Exactly. So okay, so what was the saddest moment for you,
Sad. We're gonna
and
end
what
on a
is the
sad
happiest
note.
moment for you?
I think the saddest moment for me probably was in a meet and greet, and I had a young girl approach me, and she asked me if I made myself sick to stay pretty.
Oh wow.
And she was so young. The first thought I had was, "How old are you?"
That you
And
would
then the
have that-
second thought was, "Where would you get an idea like this?"
Yeah.
And so to
How would
me,
you even know that exists? You know, that some people throw up to try and keep their weight down.
you know,
and everything.
I in the moment, I told her, you know, food is something that makes me really happy. It makes me strong so I can do all the things that I love to do. What makes you happy? What are the games you like to play? And we started this conversation. So I'm hoping that moment mattered to her
changed
and
her
hopefully gave her at least a perspective that was different than what she had been hearing of, you know, food can be really fun. It's something that can make you happy and give you it can be empowering for what
because
you want
because
to
a
do.
lot of people do have that sort of
But-
internal struggle where it's
Food
a hate
shame.
relationship.
Yeah, where they
Food
shame. I would
Yeah,
think
but
particularly
I think-
girls. Yeah.
But I think that was probably the saddest moment because it was that initial reaction of how do you know this and who's telling you these things? Or are you just picking up on these things in society at large?
But in either case, it's a sad reaction to
Right.
to somebody who's that young, basically having that predisposition.
Right, but the
Food's
happiest...
supposed to be fun, not negative,
Yeah.
and there's so much around it, particularly.
And thank
in
you
our
for
society.
sharing that because I
Yeah.
think it's important. You're like, oh, sad moment. Yes, I think we need to talk about
Yeah,
everything.
but I think
what's the happiest?
The happiest moment, I think, is also on the flip side of that is knowing that, yeah, in that same moment, we were able to have this conversation about, okay, how can we think about this differently? So
that you could be empowering.
that food can be empowering, that food can be fun, it can be an adventure, and so it's kind of, you know, there's two sides to the same coin, and so.
Bitter and sweet.
Yeah, so I'm not okay with just sitting in sadness. I think it's something that should be acknowledged. It's something we need to address just at large, but I'm not satisfied just
What
sitting there with
percentage
that,
of
so
professional leaders are women? Would you say? Just give me a rough.
I'd say
idea.
like 25% at this point. So
maybe a quarter.
That's
Okay.
decent.
so
And so are there like food babes that have like posters and show up in bikinis?
Like
No.
food groupies.
or I'm
No.
saying the play to the male audience and try and
No.
be food babes and
no, and I think this is
prance around.
part of
you
the
know.
frustration that a lot of competitors have, and it's not just the women, it's the men too, is that, you know, the women train, they work just as hard to earn that spot at the table as the
Right.
men do.
Mhm.
And then to be, you know, treated differently based on appearance and diminished, and all of that training that you did, all of the hard
Very-
work,
very-
all of the struggle.
Because look how I'm not trying to get too social here at a moment of Me Too.
No, but it's a
moment,
very
so-
it's very
Yeah,
timely.
exactly.
It's very timely.
Women are objectified, and sports
Very
are primarily
timely.
male, and so they're cheerleaders and they're the women are there to be sort of babes and to walk around the boxing ring and to be cheerleaders.
No, and I think as a sport, Major League Eating has fairly well, like they've done a pretty good job of rejecting that idea. I think women, some of the trailblazers, Carlene Lefevre, Sonia Thomas, were some of the first women in the sport, and they were there wearing the same sponsor T-shirt as all of the men, oftentimes beating the men. And I really I admire their ability to kind of blaze that trail for the rest of us.
Well, on that note, and I think thank you, because that is really timely. I mean, we're dealing with that on every level, where there is inequality.
And I could see where,
including
if you're playing to a young male audience, you could have a lot of women thinking, well, okay, I'm going to show up and I'm going to walk around in a bikini, and that's how I'm going to get on the stage.
No, and I, like I said, I think that Major League Eating has done a really great job of setting the standard for equality. I mean, it's one of the very few sports that exists where men and women are paid equally. You're paid based on what you eat at that table. Men and women are in the same field together.
And there's probably no physical limitation. I mean, obviously, a male tennis player can hit the ball harder than a female tennis player can, or baseball.
Again, generalizations, Paul. I mean, I think this is the basic problem, is that we look at these things and we look for reasons to basically differentiate,
right,
rather than basically just evaluate everybody regardless of gender, ethnicity, whatever you want to basically use as a differentiator, looking at their capabilities, on their merit, on the excellence that they bring, and you know, hard work is hard work, persistence is persistence.
I'm just saying, there's some sports that men and women, because men can get bigger and whatever, can compete in a different level, and it's hard to have equal competitions. But this is one there is no.
You're perpetuating an underlying problem. You can use that same rationale to justify inequality of behavior based on sensitivity when it comes to military, when it comes to being of service in one way or the other. I think the basic problem is that we even allow ourselves to go down that path. Evaluate people based on their merit, on their excellence, and what they bring to the table. Excuse the pun, right? You know,
we keep coming back.
Yeah, chew on that for a change, right? Instead of basically starting off with a predisposed biasness of narrative.
That's saying that women can't compete on an equal basis on certain levels.
And what I love about competitive eating is that it's always been that way. The men and women have always competed at the same table. And I do kind of wonder about other sports. I mean, if you took the top men and the top women, and mixed everybody up, I wonder what the result would be. And I do think there are some sports where maybe there is a difference in
physical barrier, right?
I wouldn't say a barrier, but I mean, if you're watching UFC, like, I think the men and the women just fight differently. Like, if you watch the men fight, I mean, it's usually, you know, more grappling. It's a higher up type of fight. But if you watch the women fight, they use a lot of leg work.
Yeah.
And so it's just different. It's not a barrier. It's
Have you ever watched a woman wail on a guy? Okay, I mean, seriously, okay? I mean,
every night at my house.
Every night at my house. So, you know, if you're interested in competitive eating, ladies and gentlemen, check out Mary's website at Eat Be Mary, Mary. If you're interested in, you know, seeing a woman wail on a guy, then, you know, check out Paul's.
Just stand outside my house most nights.
Yeah. And don't call the police, because he's doing it for sport, right? But no, I mean, seriously, okay, this is very timely. I know that we when you first probably tuned in, you're thinking
of equality.
This is what is going on the Raad Life today, right?
This wasn't a social
we
statement.
tell you from the very beginning, we warn you, there's a disclaimer, right? It's like, you know, there's a label on the station and on the show that says, this is a journey, and we don't know where it's going to go, and we basically are better off, all of us, for taking a journey together like we just did with Mary. And you probably know things about competitive eating and the fact, did you even know there was such a thing as Major League Eating, right? I mean, probably not, right? Or that it was a 20-year-old sport. I mean, that's new. You know, if you're interested, check it out, because I think there's room probably.
Why isn't it in the sports page? Why don't we have the rankings?
It is in the sports page. It is in the sports page. You've been missing it.
Reading the long
There's
paper.
a reason that it is on ESPN every year.
Okay.
So
I'm going to check the rankings.
So I appreciate you being here, Mary. Thank you very much. You know, societally, historically, a lot of stuff happens around food. A lot of stuff happens around people sharing food. and it's sort of a leveling of a playing field in a way. So whether it is hot dogs or 5-star cuisine, and I honestly, personally, and people have heard me say this over and over to the point where they're probably sick of me saying it, but if you can't appreciate a high-end, perfect steak on one end and within 24 hours be eating a hot dog from a New York stand that basically is perfectly done, or know the difference between one from New York and one from Chicago, you are missing something in life. Okay, so you could be hoity-toity, stuck-up nose on one side, and you're not ever going to buy that thing from the vendor on the street in New York City, or that corn that's from some guy in Santa Ana, basically, in winter, or chestnuts or whatever. Food is an experience, and it is part of how we express ourselves as human beings. So embrace it. And body image and all that stuff, what do you care what other people think? So thanks for being here, Mary. I appreciate you being here.
It's a pleasure.
How do people get hold of you? To the website?
Website. There's all my contact booking information. You can find contact information for Major League Eating as well.
Personal
on my
appearances. You
website,
make personal appearances, and
I do.
come to my party, and we'll all watch you eat or something.
I would also urge you guys to connect with Mary, because this lady is a really, really got it perfectly. Like, she's interacting with so many people. We got engaged in some conversations that were about millennials and Gen Zs and stuff like that. She's got literally a front seat to that table by the people that are coming in and basically interacting with her. She really is, excuse the pun, a smart cookie. And
everybody eats.
And everybody eats. So thank you for feeding our soul and feeding the airwaves with us today. Everybody, thanks for joining us. You can reach us at the Raad Life on Facebook. You can contact me at raad.ghantos@gmail.com. If you have any questions for Mary, reach out to her directly or through us. We're more than happy to connect you. Wow, this was a really fulfilling show. Take us away, Paul.
You have been listening to the Raad Life Radio Show with your host and age explorer, Raad Gantos, brought to you on the one and only octalkradio.net. Join us again next week as we continue our journey of discovery into life's challenges, opportunities, options, and all the latest and greatest things that come with getting older.